I could compare this game or this team, the way that this matches up. I won't go as far as the wide receivers. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka and Carnell Tate are different for Ohio State. But I think of the fact, hey, Will Howard is a dual threat quarterback. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He can read a defense. Having Chip Kelly, having Dem Brock as an offensive coordinator for Riley Leonard. But I compare all those two things. Riley Leonard is like Will Howard. Jeremiah Love and all those other running. Notre Dame just has running back depth, quality running back depth, because I can't say, oh, it's like Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Those guys I think are on a different level, but Jeremiah Love's on that level. I don't know about Jadarian Price and Aeneas Williams, but it's the fact that they have running back depth and guys that they trust absolutely wholeheartedly in that backfield. So Will Howard, Riley Leonard, not a lot of differences. Jeremiah Love in that backfield, not a lot of differences from the fact that Ohio State has those kind of has that luxury in the depth chart for themselves. So Notre Dame is comparable to that matchup that Penn State faced against Ohio State, sans Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka. There we go. So alluded to it. How much credit should Notre Dame get? Because Georgia is not that good. This is a team that got smacked by Ole Miss and nearly knocked off by Georgia Tech. Every game is subjective. I don't let one performance define a team, because then if that was the case, Notre Dame wouldn't be at this point because of that Northern Illinois game. And honestly, for Penn State, they shouldn't have struggled as much against Bowling Green, but every game is unique. And that is still a tough, physical Georgia team. They made it to the college football playoff. They beat Texas twice, the team that is in the semifinal. Carson back, not having Carson back 100%, going with Gunnar Stockton. I get that, but Georgia would still defeat a good half of these other teams in the college football playoff. So Notre Dame absolutely deserves a ton of credit. And guys got banged up, right? That you really got to be tough as nails to make it through a Georgia team, even though this isn't traditionally the ones that we know as, hey, that's a national title contender and don't question it otherwise. Penn State's line better get better versus the blitz, because Notre Dame is a very good blitzing team. And that is without one of its better defenders on the defensive line. And they get organic pressure. Al Golden is able to queue up different types of blitzes. But yes, if I am Notre Dame, I am looking at that film against Penn State for Penn State versus Boise State. And really, the Broncos got home. Whether it was Drew Shelton, Nick Dawkins, primarily the interior of the offensive line, I don't know if those were communication issues, but very uncharacteristic for Penn State, because they've been better in pass protection than they have run blocking. And it's like the script flipped. Now, pass protection had become somewhat of an issue, and they were dominant in the ground game. So Penn State's issue in terms of one-on-one, Penn State's offensive line is doing well. Penn State's offensive line has not been playing. They've been playing their best football to this point in time. Nolan Rucci is grading out as one of the best overall offensive linemen per Pro Football Focus. That was something I pointed out earlier over on X. I said that, hey, Penn State and Phil Trautwein just unlocked Nolan Rucci's 5-star potential as this team is in the postseason. Losing Anthony Donko, that was one of my biggest concerns, and now Nolan Rucci is playing to that five-star level, and it's backed up by the data, by the analytics. To be honest, Penn State looks like the better team, and that's why I give them a winning chance. With or without Abdul Carter, I think this team, I will have more. This is, like I said, this is kind of the initial reaction. I'm going to have more to go through everything. But Notre Dame and Penn State, this couldn't be a closer matchup. Strength on strength in a lot of categories. They're very similar teams, but I think Drew Allar's a better quarterback than Riley Leonard. I think Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen as a tandem are better than Jeremiah Love and Aeneas Williams, or like I said, they have so many running backs. Jadarian Price. I'm going to forget a player, right? But I think those two in tandem are better than the three that Notre Dame have. Now, going into this matchup maybe a few weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, I'll take Notre Dame's offensive line every single time. They are strong. They reset the line of scrimmage. They're able to push guys off of the football. Against a Georgia front seven, they were able to get movement. But Penn State's offensive line is playing. So that's kind of, that one right there is kind of neutralized. Pass catchers for Penn State overall, do they have a Heisman contender to throw to? No, they don't. Now, Riley Leonard had 90 passing yards. 90 passing yards against that Georgia defense. Now, I know that is Georgia's defense, but still, they really relied on Jeremiah Love in that backfield with Riley Leonard as a dual threat quarterback. I think Jordan Faison is a reliable target. I think Mitchell Evans as well, but it's not like Penn State can't cover those players. I would take A.J. Harris more often than not against Faison. I would take a Tony Rojas, a Kobe King in coverage against a Mitchell Evans. So Notre Dame does have reliable targets, but Penn State's secondary isn't overmatched here. This isn't a mismatch at all. Abdul Carter's an important part of this, and we'll talk about him more in the final segment. Is he going to play? How effective will he be? What's the recovery? James Franklin's going to give us hopefully an update. Hopefully at least a usable update, right? We'll get an update, but hopefully it'll be something that actually tells us what we need to know going into the Orange Bowl. Stockton was a disadvantage to Georgia. Well, Carson Beck wasn't playing that well either. I don't know Georgia's quarterback situation too much, following them from afar, but they could still score the football. They almost came back and beat Alabama. They did score 40 plus points against Georgia Tech. So that offense wasn't completely awful, but there is a big drop off going from Carson Beck as a multi-year starter to Gunnar Stockton. I mean, they couldn't even use his legs, but that is also in part to Notre Dame's defense is top 5 objectively. Look at the statistics, look at the analytics. Notre Dame has a top 5 defense. Al Golden is doing wonders with that defense, and there's a lot of talent. I look at Notre Dame's secondary. If you're going to highlight any strength, okay, Penn State has a really good secondary with Jalen Reed, Zach Wheatley, and A.J. Harris, and I think Jalen Kimber and Zion Tracy have gotten better as the season's gone along. But Notre Dame's secondary, it is very, very good. One of the best in the country. We'll see who has the match. Per the eye test, it's pretty close, but I would not be surprised if I had to give that one to Notre Dame based on the way that they force turnovers. Penn State isn't forcing as many interceptions as a Notre Dame is. Notre Dame going into the Sugar Bowl had 18 interceptions. Penn State doesn't have that. And 53 passes defended to go along with 11 fumbles recovered. So this Notre Dame defense forces turnovers. Penn State, fortunately, doesn't give the football away very much, but Notre Dame can get its hands on the football. Wave the white flag, Penn State. It's going to be a brutal game. That is defeatist. Game hasn't even started. We only have just the initial opening spread, and it's not like it's 10 points. It's 1.5. It's 1.5. This is the big game moment for James Franklin. This is the big game moment. Franklin can put a lot of criticism to rest by defeating Notre Dame. Doesn't matter if it's by 1 point or 100. A 100-point victory would be awesome. But if James Franklin and Penn State are able to do this and get to the national title game, I don't care who's waiting on the other side. If that's Texas or that's Ohio State, truly, listen to the 1-0 mentality. It does not matter who you are facing. You have to get there first. But that would quiet a lot of criticism, a lot of media personalities that have been after James Franklin for the longest time, and I don't want to say deservedly so. I don't think that's right. But the criticism isn't unwarranted to an extent because Penn State hasn't racked up top 5. And it's hard to do. It is hard to do. Find me a coach, find me a program that is consistently defeating top 5 teams, top 10 teams left and right. It is a tall task. It is not easy to get to the national championship. But this Penn State team is built different. Drew Aller's playing his best football. Singleton and Allen are both healthy. Tyler Warren was a Heisman contender. This offensive line is playing its best football. Abdul Carter seems to be available, but the defensive line, Zane Durant, Devontae Thomas, Denai Dennis Sutton, and then your backups are 4th, 5th, 6th-year guys. Smith Vilbert, Amin Vanover. This team was built for a national title run, and I hope that's what the everydayers remember. I have said this. I am not surprised that they are in the semifinal. It doesn't matter about Boise State and SMU. I said that Penn State could get to the national championship, and they can beat Notre Dame. They can get there. This isn't a joke. This is serious. That Penn State should be considered. I think they should be the 1.5 point favorite over Notre Dame. Personally, I think they are slightly better, but I wouldn't be surprised if Vegas and the odds makers are being hesitant with the availability of Abdul Carter. So